down to Biscayne. Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the flow playing, got it all band. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's about have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
Welcome into 5 on the Floor Live here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick on the 5 Reasons Sports. We got Greg Sylvander. You can follow me at Greg Sylvander, and the guy who's been holding it down on playback of late and much of the season, our guy Matt Hannafin. It's a lot earlier for him where he is than where we are right now. You can follow him at NPH_824_, the most complicated Twitter handle in the network other than Tropical Blanket. Tropical Blanket, by the way, Alex Toledo is at the game tonight, so check out all of his content. Brady's going to be back with us in a couple of days. The Miami Heat win against the Toronto Raptors. I'm going to say this right now. That was the easy part. The rest of the stuff that's going around in the league that they don't have control over is what we're going to spend the majority of this show on. We will get, obviously, to the game. We'll handle that here in the first third of the episode. And then we're going to go through the possibilities entering Sunday's play. The Heat will finish their regular season on Sunday. I will be at that one. They host the Raptors again. So the Raptors get a little dose of South Beach flu in addition to tanking flu. All of these different conditions are coming together that should make that a relatively easy game for the Miami Heat, as this one pretty much was. The Heat were in control for most of the game. The Heat now have 45 wins on the season with a chance to get to 46. By the way, if you bet them in Vegas, I believe the preseason number was 44.5, I think. See, Matt's nodding because he's actually in Nevada. 44.5. So you covered that. They're not going to reach my number of 47 games this season. So we'll get into all the other results that went on around the NBA. But let's just start here because, again, we're going to cover the game here at the very beginning with the Rock Esports Gamer of the Night. And now on 5 on the Floor, it's time for the Gamer of the Night, sponsored by Rock Esports Center, the place to eat, drink, and play all day. Host your next birthday party with them. Located at 15305 South Dixie Highway in Palmetto Bay, they've got a 5,500 square foot state-of-the-art center equipped with all the high-end power. Play all-day passes available for just $25, but if you mention 5 Reasons, it's just $20. So mention 5 Reasons or 5 RSN. You get to play all day for $20. And now, the Gamer of the Night. We're going to split this one up tonight because there are 2 guys who figure prominently into the Heat's future, and they both came to play. And we talk about teams that are kind of tanking against the Heat. They're playing a lot of young players. Miami's young players tend to stick out in these games. Both of these guys were obviously first-round picks. But I thought both Nikola Jovic and Jaime Jaquez were really good tonight. And I'm going to lean towards Jaquez in the conversation here because we've seen this from Jovic lately. And this has been kind of a trend where Jaquez was the guy who popped earlier in the season, came back to earth, had the groin injury, hasn't looked quite the same since he came back, just finding a rhythm, while Jovic has been ascending ever since, being frustrated early in the season about going back and forth to the G League. But this was one of those times they both played well. And the thing that jumped out to me, Greg, tonight on Jaquez was the assists. Finished with 9 assists tonight. Seems like that's developing counters, which is something we've talked about with him as he's getting scouted a little bit more this season. It's good to have him looking fresh going to the playoffs, especially when we don't know what's going on with Duncan Robinson at this moment. I'm expecting Terry Rozier, we'll get to the injury report in a little bit, expecting Rozier to be back here relatively soon, although I don't think we'll see him Sunday. But with Duncan, we just don't know, dealing with a back injury. And so they're going to have to get some playmaking from one of their other role players, and Jaime provided it tonight.
It looks like he's no longer thinking too much. Finally, he's getting back to just playing instinctual basketball. So I thought it was a great game for him with the assist. You're right. It's counters, but it's more than that. It's also him just getting back to those
I think Greg froze up here for a second, but I'm with Greg on the general thoughts, so he'll pop back in with us. But again, 9 assists here for. I'll go through the entire stat line. Greg, we'll pop back to you in a second. You just froze there for a bit. Finished 5 of 11 from the field, 29 minutes, 13 points, 4 rebounds, 9 assists. Jovic tonight in 23 minutes, 19 points, 3 of 8 from 3. He's got the green light, particularly on that on those spot ups, which I like him taking, plus 4 rebounds. So you get 32 combined points from the two of them, 8 combined rebounds, 10 combined assists. I'll go to you, Matt, on Jovic specifically here, as he's kind of entrenched himself in the starting lineup. Let's take it the other direction here. Instead of what he's done well, we've talked a lot on the podcast about what he's done well. Where do you still see potential for growth this season? Because obviously he's going to have an off season. We talked about this on playback. He's probably going to play with Serbia again. Probably bulk up even more, I would guess. But where can now that he's got more confidence, where can his game go before this thing is over with in 23-24?
I would say, I think the first answer that I'd probably lean to is the shooting. I mean, he's still shooting 40% from 3, so that's obviously a good number. But the place that I want to go is him attacking closeouts and his decision making when he's getting downhill. Not to say that's ever been bad or that's ever been a thing, but like the thing I've noticed with him lately is like his decision making, I think, is quicker now. But like if you expedite that in terms of like you're going to be facing playoff level defenders now. I mean, you may not have a playoff level defender guarding you, but like if you're attacking the lane, there's a lot of length, there's a lot of hands typically in those series. And so that's where I kind of want to see improvement for him. But then also defensively, like, yes, he's shown so much growth defending in space. He's shown so much discipline on the defensive end, not biting as much on pump fakes, not getting lost. And so that's where I think he can even continue to grow more in addition to his shooting, in addition to him attacking closeouts and his decision-making when he's in traffic, when he sees a couple of bodies. Like, I think those are a couple of things that he can really continue to improve on, even though he's made exponential growth in those departments already. And like, he's had the guard skills, but like you can continue to build on that, especially with the ball in your hands more in a playoff setting, or like in a play-in setting, whatever phrase you want to use for it. So that's where I think that he could grow in addition to his shooting, which has been really spectacular this year. And then his post play, like if you can figure out when to back dudes down in the post and like he sees a mismatch on him and not just straight the 3-point line and him being able to take advantage of those mismatches. Like I think we've seen that a little bit more lately, but again, there's always something to improve. And I think, again, that could be something that you can build off of and like, okay, someone a half foot shorter than me switches on me, bet. Like I'm going to go up with this. I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity. I think he's shown that more, but I think that's something he can continue to improve on as the season winds down.
Firstly, I want to say that's the first time we've heard the word bet used as a just that's we appreciate that. Bring a little bit of youth to the program here with Brady not here. I don't think I've ever heard Brady use the word bet. Also, I do want to say that I got the numbers wrong here because I forgot to hit refresh. They actually combined for 42 points, 9 rebounds, and 11 assists. So pretty strong stat line from your last 2 first-round picks. Not bad at all. We'll get to the play of the night in a second, but I want to cover the vets here, Greg, just before we do. And then, again, we will get into playoff possibilities here on the second half of the pod because I know that's what most of you are here for, but we do feel like we at least want to give the game some due. The Heat win 125-103. Bam tonight. We talked before the game on the Prize Picks show. Use that code 5 FIVE outside the state of Florida. Get your initial deposit match up to $100. That Bam would probably have a bounce back tonight, particularly in this matchup. He was 8 of 10 from the floor. Had another 3, 19 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. Jimmy only shot 7 times, but I don't think anybody's complaining tonight. We also said before the game, we actually got this one right for a change, that Jimmy would probably be a high assist guy tonight. I played him over on that. He had 7 assists tonight, in addition to 14 points. They were kind of doing things at their own pace. They're not going to get pressed by a team like this that's, first thing, under-talented to begin with, and then also really not playing to win because they're trying to keep their draft pick, which it appears now they will do, actually finishing as a bottom 6 team in the league. But your thoughts, Greg, before we move on to the others, just on and a Hero with 17 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 of 6 from 3, 10 shots overall. Your thoughts on those 3 players, Greg, tonight?
Hero looks fresh. Jimmy looked more active than usual. And Bam was the catalyst in the first half. He was probably the link to all the positive things that took place in the first half, and that's really where they built the lead. So it's good when your three best players are all looking good. It is the Raptors, so we're going to understand that, but I mean, I'll take it.
And you'll take it against considering that RJ Barrett had 35 tonight, and honestly, because we were paying no attention to that part of it on playback, since we were following other games and talking about the Heat season, I didn't notice any of those 35 points. But good for RJ, I guess, that he had 35. They held quickly to 15. We actually thought he might be more of the issue tonight. All right, we're getting through the game stuff here quickly because we're going to get to everything else afterwards. Let's get to the play of the night, Greg. And now it's time for the Insurance by Lynette Play of the Night, sponsored by InsuranceByLynette.com, an A-aggressive insurance agency. You can reach out to our friend Lynette at 954-581-8800. That's 954-581-8800, or InsuranceByLynette.com. That's InsuranceByLynette.com with 2 N's and 2 T's. Your best play for auto insurance, homeowners insurance, condo insurance, life insurance, or a retirement program. Reach out to Lynette at InsuranceByLynette.com. I'm going to let Matt choose this one, and you're not allowed to choose Alontis Williams coming into the game, even though you do host the Skyforce podcast with us. That one, Swider and Alontis and Orlando Robinson coming in, and Jamal Cain, that's off the table. Pick something else.
No, man, you have me scrambling now. No, in the middle of the second quarter, after a DeLon Wright steal, Jaime Jaquez lobbed to Bam Adebayo in transition. The Heat executing in transition has been something that we all have talked about all year, or at least their lack thereof of executing in transition. But hey, Jaime was very aggressive tonight. He was getting a lot of on-ball reps, which he should have had at this point in the season. Like, he should have gotten in, rightfully so. 20 points, 9 assists. But one of those 9 was a lob to Bam, who was really aggressive with the rim tonight. I felt like he had a few slams that he kind of wanted to take the rim down, and I like to see that from him. So I think that's my play of the night if y'all have another one.
No, that's just fine. I'll say it did seem like Bam was taking out frustration tonight. Yeah. And again, if you're going to do it, you get a game like this, you get another tune-up perhaps on Sunday, and that's what we're going to pivot to now. So let's get through some of the results. Thanks. We're done with the game now. The Heat win. They have 45 wins on the season. Raptors, like I said, going to stay in South Beach. They can enjoy it down here, and then 1 o'clock, ideally for the Heat, get blown out again. But let's get to the scenario. So what happened tonight? Okay, nothing unexpected. We'll start there. The Sixers, Embiid played really well. They've won 8 games in a row now. I do think they are the second best team in the East at this moment. I know some Knicks fans would disagree with me, but I think that's the second best team. They're the healthiest team, which is crazy. Although Cleveland did get their full 8-man rotation back and playing heavy minutes tonight. So they've gotten healthier also. Of course, the Knicks are without Randall. The Sixers, the Embiid went out, came back in, but they did beat the Magic. The Cavs let the Pacers come all the way back into the game, but they did win with that rotation. So they beat Indiana tonight, and the Knicks beat the Nets. So as you look at this in total, the Bucks losing to the Thunder, which again was expected. No Giannis, no Dame. So right now, and we'll get into all of the scenarios here. Okay, these are the win totals with 1 game left in the season, and they're playing 1 o'clock Sunday. Okay, the NBA does this now so that they make sure that teams at least try to put a representative squad on the floor, because you don't know what's going to happen, and we will get into whether the Heat should put a representative squad on the floor and how they should handle this. The Bucks have 49 wins. I know you're nodding. I agree with you. We'll get to it. The Bucks have 49 wins. The Knicks have 49 wins. This is 2 on down. Of course, the Celtics are long gone. They're first. The Cavs at 48. The Magic, Pacers, and Sixers at 46. And the Heat at 45, which currently puts them in the 8th spot. So obviously it goes without saying, if the Heat lose on Sunday, they will finish 8th, which means they will travel to play a play-in game on either Tuesday or Wednesday. If it's Philadelphia, it's likely going to be Wednesday because the Flyers have the building on Tuesday night. If it was Orlando or Indiana that they were traveling to, okay, that game will likely be Tuesday. same way that the first play-in game was Tuesday last year. Then, of course, the 7-8 winner gets the 7 seed. And the loser is going to play the winner of the 9-10 game, which again is Chicago-Atlanta. It's going to be Chicago-Atlanta until the end of time. And so again, last year it was Chicago that Miami ended up having to play in that second game, and of course they won that game, but they needed Max Strus to save them in the last 3 minutes. Okay, so that's where they're at. So to start, okay, the 8 seed, if the Heat lose, they're 8, okay, and they would be traveling to one of those teams to try to get out of 8, so that they don't have to play another play-in game, and so that they don't get stuck with the Celtics. Okay,
Correct.
even they win that game. That's where we're at. Okay. Let's not do that without people getting annoyed at me for jinxing this. Because if I can jinx this, okay, then the Heat are winning on Sunday. Okay, okay, they're winning. Okay, I believe they will put a representative team on the floor. I don't think you'll see Rozier. We'll get to the injury report later. I don't think you'll see Robinson again. I think you'll see a similar team to what you saw tonight. And
Agreed.
again, they'll try to keep Jimmy and Bam's minutes down, maybe even Tyler's minutes down a little bit, and lean on Jaquez, Jovic, Highsmith, and some of those guys to at least win. But Jimmy will probably be on the floor to start, and Bam will probably be on the floor to start with Tyler, Caleb, and Jovic. They likely would put out the same starting lineup. Okay, so let's assume a win. Okay, now let's go through the other possibilities. All right, so Matt, I'm going to go to you on this because I entered it all as we discussed on playback on a yellow sheet of paper.
On a moleskin notebook?
Apparently, with my corn pipe. And according to what the kids say these days, Bet, that's not what you're supposed to do. So I'm going to allow you to what do you have, a calculator, an abacus, some contraption here. You handle this, okay? Let's start now from the top. So we're saying they win, okay? How do they get to 5?
They need Atlanta to beat Indiana. They need Milwaukee to beat Orlando, and then they need Brooklyn to beat Philadelphia.
All right, so let's do this.
That's a lot of help that you need. The only one that would preclude them from getting that 5 seed would be if Indiana wins that game, they're no longer eligible for the 5 seed. So if Brooklyn and Milwaukee somehow take care of business, for context, Milwaukee is playing Orlando, Brooklyn is playing Philadelphia, who's won 8 straight games. Atlanta is playing Indiana. So if Milwaukee beats Orlando and if Brooklyn beats Philadelphia, but Indiana beats Atlanta, then the highest Miami can get is the 6 seed. I don't know if that's more ideal than the 5 seed to everyone. So maybe that Indiana game doesn't matter as much as the Milwaukee-Brooklyn does. Milwaukee-Orlando.
And to explain that, and I'm going to cycle back to it, to explain that, the reason, of course, and this is self-explanatory, a lot of Heat fans, but not all, the reason that you don't want to be the 5 necessarily is you end up in Boston's bracket, might have to play them in the second round. This is not getting into what the possibilities would be in terms of who you would actually play in that 4 spot, because there's still some variability there. But in the second round, you'd be stuck in Boston's bracket. Okay, so just to recap, assuming a Heat win, this is how you get to 5. Hawks win, right? Bucks win, and Nets win. Right?
Yeah, because it would create a 4-way tiebreaker, which I'm not necessarily sure how Miami would get that 4-way tiebreaker, but they would win that 4-way tiebreaker. That's how they would be eligible for it. And so that's what you need. Those are the 3 scenarios that you need for Miami to get that 5 seed somehow, some way after what we've seen the last 2 or 3 weeks. They're still eligible for it, which is crazy, but that's how they would get it.
And by the way, for those who are forgetting, and I don't want to make anybody feel worse, but if they had just beaten Indiana, they'd be in the 5 right now. Like literally right now, with the tiebreakers, they would be in the 5. And then they could decide how they wanted to handle this. I think they would still try to win the game against Toronto, but in the last game. But anyway, okay, so that's to be 5. To be 6, it basically means 2 of the 3 things happen, and the one thing that doesn't happen is the Hawks beating the Pacers. So it just means the Bucks winning, the Nets winning, along with the Heat winning. The Heat are 6, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's go through the plausibility of that before we get into the 7-8 ramifications here, okay? All right. The Nets winning, let's get percentages on this, okay? First thing, the Hawks beating Indiana, the Hawks have nothing to play for. They're the 10. And they're resting for a play-in game, right? Mm-hmm. So in terms of their motivation, there really isn't any, except maybe getting Trey in rhythm is the only thing I can think of. Like Jalen Johnson is out, right? So he'll be out 3 weeks. So it really is just getting Trey into rhythm. Okay. The motivation on the other side for the Pacers want to win, right? They are
For
motivated to win
sure.
the game, right? Stay out of the play-in. Okay. So possibility of Hawks beating the Pacers, I don't know, 20%, maybe.
That sounds
I mean,
generous.
okay. Right. So that's where we're at. All right. So the next one. The Bucks versus the Magic. Okay.
This is the one.
Okay. Now the Magic are motivated to win. They want to stay out of the play, right? Magic are motivated. Greg, what do we think the Bucks' motivations are? We know Giannis is not going to play. Dame didn't play tonight,
I
but they've
think that,
sucked lately. So I feel like they kind of need to win a game here somewhere. But what are they motivated to try to keep the 2, or would they rather slip to 3, or take the chance of slipping to 4 and then they're playing the Celtics in the second round? Like, where would you put the Bucks' motivation level?
I feel like they want to get the game, but you'll probably see guys sit. And it's a situation where it's going to be unlikely. Orlando is going to be motivated to win. So you're going to need a little bit of luck to, a bad shooting night, something to go wrong for a team like Orlando, because I don't think Milwaukee's gunning for the 2 seed. Do either of you think that they're gunning for the 2 seed? I think that they're ducking the 2 seed, if anything.
Well,
They're ducking the 2 seed to avoid playing Philadelphia or Miami, right? Basically.
I was going to say, if Orlando wins that game, again, this is all assuming that Brooklyn beats Philadelphia, which we're going to be discussing in a little bit. But if Milwaukee, if Orlando beats Milwaukee, then Miami would be the 7. And so that's where it's like, okay, now you have a potential Milwaukee-Miami matchup. I don't know. Again, I don't know how much Milwaukee wants to duck any of these teams. Like, we don't know. But, like, theoretically, that could happen. And so, like, I don't think they would want that to happen. And
you know the one, Matt, I think they want to duck. They want to duck Philly. And I think they want to duck Philly for a few reasons. One is, honestly, the Sixers are playing the best ball in the conference right now. But also, you think Doc wants to play Philly in the first round?
Mind games. Right.
Actually, no. I don't. And now that I'm looking at it, now that I so if hold on, let me. Okay, never. I was gonna say regardless of the Brooklyn Philly game, but Brooklyn would still need to beat Philly for Miami to be the 7 seed in that scenario, which they will. Right. They still can be the 7 seed just by winning the play-in game, but they would have obviously a higher likelihood of winning that play-in game at home versus on the road, despite what their home and road splits are this year.
All right, so let's put a percentage on it now. What do you think the chances are that the Bucks beat the Magic? Are they better than the Hawks beating the Pacers? Maybe slightly.
Yep, I'd say that you give them 35%.
I'm saying 30 to 35, something along those lines. Yeah. Okay.
I'd probably say 40.
Better? All right. Okay, that's fair. All right. So let's take the other one now. The Nets helped the Heat last week by beating the Pacers. The Heat just couldn't take advantage of it. What are the chances they beat Philly? Again, considering that Embiid got hurt tonight, briefly came out. I mean, are the Sixers that motivated? We're 100% sure Embiid plays Sunday.
The Sixers are 31-8 when Embiid plays this season. I don't think they're worried. They don't care about the matchup as long as Embiid is right.
So maybe he sits, right?
I tend to think so.
Maybe he plays for a half. Like, there's middle ground there. I don't know. Maybe.
Well, the Nets have nothing to play for, but the Nets have also no reason to lose. They don't have a first round pick. So that's the other thing here. Like, you could have a Cam Thomas game. Like, he's been on fire. We talked about that on playback. What odds are we giving the Nets to beat the Sixers, Matt?
It's probably close to Hawks Pacers territory, like 20%, 25%. I don't see Philly losing this game at home. I just don't. Yeah. Maybe they rest a bunch of guys and they're not worried about their spot in the standings. But I don't think the Nets beat Philly. Regardless, honestly, I don't see it.
All right. So basically, we're projecting a Heat win. and we're saying that in terms of this, the chances are you might get one of these three things, right? You might get of Nets over Sixers, Hawks over Pacers, Bucks over Magic. All right. And we don't have enough time to go through all the possibilities if it was one or the other or the other. It just does look like at this point that we're headed for the Heat in 7 or 8, right? I mean, it's just, that's what the overall percentages are saying, but you need help from sources that you can't count on, right?
No.
You
got to
can't
take it a
count
step
on
further. It
Right.
looks like it's going to be Sixers in 7, Heat in 8, and the
which
Heat
is
are
the
going to
worst
head
of
up to
all
Philly.
worlds. Which is the worst of all worlds, right? I mean, it just is. It's the worst of all worlds. I mean, if Embiid is healthy, and also the other part of it is that if you're playing Philadelphia, he gets another day because they're not going to play till Wednesday. Okay, so like let's say that the Sixers, let's say Embiid plays 2 quarters or plays 20 minutes, okay, enough to beat the Nets to get the win, right? Then he's going to have, whatever rest he gets that day, plus Monday, plus Tuesday. Miami has to fly up there. So then I'll ask this: what is, what odds do you give Miami? I'm going to go to guts check guy here. What odds do you give Miami to go up to Philadelphia, who would be on a 9-game winning streak at that point, and get that game?
I'd say it's probably 60-40 Miami, and I'm being a
Really?
homer there. I think
Is that
that
because they're a better road team than home team this year?
that's part of it, and also Philly's due for a loss, and so I also just like the idea of Miami being counted out in that place better than the front runner space. So I'm saying 60-40, 50-50 at the worst. And I'm being optimistic.
You're being optimistic. Well, of course, if they won that game, they'd be in the 7, and then we'd be talking about who ended up in the 2, whether it was Milwaukee, New York, or Cleveland. And there are preferences there. To me, Cleveland is the matchup you want in a playoff series. That's where I come down on this. Of any of those, I would say I'd take Milwaukee after that, and then probably the Knicks after that, considering Giannis's situation at this stage. Do you guys disagree with me on that before we get into the rest? I mean, Cleveland is healthy now. They had their core 8 today. First time they've had their core 8 in a while. Like the core off the bench. I mean, they have their group now. Levert played. They all played. Strus played. Mobley, Garland, etc. But I come back to this on it. Okay, they got to catch at least one break.
Correct.
Like one break to get out of this. Like they have boxed themselves into a corner. They did this to themselves. There's no excuses to be made for this. Okay. We can look at the Washington game, the Memphis game when they weren't playing anybody, the Indiana game, the Philly game. They had chances. They had chances in all of these games. I don't want to pin individual blame on anybody today. There'll be time for that in the postmortem. We've done enough of that already. There's a lot of people responsible for the position that they're in right now. Okay. Again, this is about taking the regular season more seriously in the future. I believe that has to be done. You can't put yourself in this spot. But if they catch one break, I feel like they can wiggle out of this. Like they need some other than just winning the game on Sunday, right? Like one of these things or two of these things need to happen to get them out of what is currently the worst of all situations, which is having to go to Philly, okay, which I think is likely a loss. Then winning that home game against most likely Chicago, or it could be Atlanta, I suppose. Okay, although I think their injury situation needs me to lean Chicago, particularly because Chicago's at home in that play-in game, and then having to go for the right to go to Boston. I mean, they need one thing to happen on Sunday other than just winning the game. Matt, do you agree? Because Greg and I think we're on the same page on this. That the way that they approach this Sunday is start the same group that you started today?
Yeah, I think that's what you would go to. And then obviously if it's like a 20-point game with the fourth quarter starting or like some blowout type fashion, then you start resting guys. But I think starting with the same group that you started with today is probably the best solution. And again, like I think the same motive is just like get guys in rhythm. Like get Jovic in rhythm, get Jaquez in rhythm. Obviously, get Jimmy. Hero needs to get in rhythm. Like all of these guys, like have the same motives that you had today on Sunday, and let the pieces fall where they may. I should add that, like, let's say Milwaukee does beat Orlando, and like Philadelphia wins, Indiana wins, Miami wins, but Milwaukee beats Orlando. Then Orlando would be the 8. And so that's where it's like that's probably the I don't want to say the
they
most
need one break.
realistic. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Break. Like that's probably what you want if you're Miami. Like that's correct. That's the one. That's the most likely, I guess, upset in this.
Matt's just froze. Oh, there you go.
That's the one that you want. Like that's the most likely of like the 4 games of like being an upset if we're calling Milwaukee underdogs in this scenario. And so again, Miami's got to take care of business, and then you need help elsewhere. And again, to your point, they did this to themselves. But the Milwaukee Orlando one, I think Greg mentioned this earlier. Like that's the one that you're really, really looking at.
So you know who you're counting on? You know who you're counting on after all this? After everything we did this summer, who's the one person you're counting on to save you? You're counting on Dame Lillard to save you.
Yeah.
Because Giannis ain't playing, right?
Correct.
So you are counting on Dame Lillard to save you. That's where this whole thing has come full circle, right?
The universe is so funny.
You got to win your own game. You need Dame to play, and you need him to beat Orlando. And I'm with you. This is the best case of all scenarios because first thing, and the Heat would find a way to F it up possibly with the way that the season has gone. They lose at home to Orlando and everything, and we'll be doing the same dance after that. But that is the way you want it to set up. Orlando comes into your building, inexperienced team that you've handled pretty well this year. A lot of your core guys have had pretty good games against them. I covered the game up in Orlando where Jimmy didn't play, and they still ran them out of the building. I don't trust Orlando in terms of this kind of situation. It feels to me like they're still a year away. You get that game, and then it breaks it, however it is. Now, of course, if Milwaukee wins, then you'll be playing Milwaukee, right?
Exactly.
Because that's the thing. Right, because Milwaukee will then put you in the position to play Orlando, but so that you can get the Bucks. But then you get the Bucks without Giannis, potentially. I mean, you're talking about a calf injury. You don't take chances with your franchise player. And I think Heat fans would be absolutely just fine, okay? But people say, well, they beat the Bucks because Giannis wasn't healthy again. Who gives a damn, okay?
Yeah.
It makes no difference, okay? You go up there and then you try to beat Dame in a playoff series, and you talk about full circle. That's the way that you would want this thing to go. So I am just it's just funny how this whole thing played out.
Should
but
we have
that's
forecasted
exactly
this at the start of the season?
This is how stuff. Probably this is how this thing still works. And then our guy Major Passons is here in the chat, your co-host on the Skyforce podcast, and that's exactly right. Right after the Heat beat Dame, he requests another trade to the Heat. We go through this whole circle again. All right, we can't finish the show before we do this, so let's get to the injury report.
And now it's time for the official 5 on the Floor injury report, sponsored by our friend Eric Rubenstein, the personal injury attorney. Born and raised in Lauderdale, Florida, lives in Miami, went to St. Thomas. He's a South Florida guy and a huge Miami Heat fan. But the important thing is he can help you get your money that you deserve when something happens to you. So reach out to our guy, Eric Rubenstein. Again, ericrubenstein.com, or ask about me, I got you, on Instagram. And now, the injury report.
All right, so we'll get to this quickly here. As we mentioned, Duncan Robinson is still dealing with the facet syndrome in his back. I was told he was not going to play through the end of the regular season. Certainly no reason to play him on Sunday. We'll see where he is next week. Terry Rozier, ex-Bolster, said basically his neck is bleeped up. But again, he could wake up any morning and be fine. So I would expect held out again on Sunday. Mm-hmm. More likely to me that he's ready for a play-in game than Duncan is. But the fact that they upgraded Duncan to doubtful the other night, somewhat promising. Not ruling him out either, but I think Rozier would be ahead of him. All right, we thank everybody here as well as our sponsors. We will be back. We're going to do another podcast tomorrow. I do not know on what, Greg, because I feel like we just covered this entire scenario. But we'll get to something tomorrow, and then obviously we'll have coverage Sunday of the game. Make sure I didn't mention it today. Subscribe to Off the Floor. $2.99 per month, the most Heat content anywhere. We appreciate all of you on there. We'll do a Q&A on there tomorrow as well to handle a lot of this stuff. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.